Just when you thought you were done with me, here we are again. Let's go over some more Bubble and Make and Rapid API integrations. And in my little mini series here, we're going to go over how exactly some of the functionality of Revamped was built using Make, Rapid API, and Bubble. I want to combine all those and show you one of the examples of how we are able to generate articles. If you've used Revamped before, you're probably like, what the hell is going on in the back end? How is this actually happening? How are we able to take a YouTube link and create an article from it? But we're gonna go step by step, and I'm gonna show you exactly what's going on in the back end so you can try to replicate this yourself. Now, if you have finished my Bubble course, you already have a super solid foundation and could probably do this on your own with a little bit of critical and creative thinking. But I'm gonna show you this nonetheless. Let's go through it. So on my index page, you can see I've built another beautiful landing page, which has our input where we're gonna put the link. We'll then submit, then we'll display what gets returned to us from that video or the text. Once we receive that text, we'll then generate a source. Once we have that source selected, we'll then generate an article, and then our article will display right here. Let's get into it because there's a lot to show you here. I want to start with, of course, our database setup. Now, I'm going to be doing part of the database setup now, part later. But let's do the part where we get the YouTube source and the YouTube details that we need in order to generate that article. So we'll come to our new type, and we'll type in source, we'll create. And what do we need in our source? Well, probably a few things. We probably need the title. So let's get the title of the video, and we'll select text. We're also going to need the text that gets returned, or the transcript in our case. So text will be text. Then we'll need the URL. This will be of type text. We'll create that. Again, if you've watched the Bubble course, you already kind of know what's going on here. And everything should seem very, very, very familiar. So that's all we really need here. We could add more details, but I think that would just be a waste of your time. So let's keep it with the text title and URL. That's really all that we need here. So let's go to our workflows. Let's go back to our designs. Then we'll go to our submit and edit our submit. We'll add a workflow from here so we know we're on our button. And we're gonna add our first step. Now, thinking about this logically, what is the first action that needs to happen? Well, a user's gonna input a URL, and in some magical way, we need to get a data point associated with that video once they enter a URL in order to do something with the data associated with the video. So how do we do that? Well, let's come to our trusty plugins page. We'll see if a plugin can't do this for us. Spoiler alert, I already know there is one. So let's type in BNS, and then you have YouTube Video ID Extractor. That's how we're actually gonna associate that URL with a specific video on YouTube. Let's go install that. We'll hit done. Let's come to our workflow. So the first action we're gonna do is actually get that video ID. So type in YouTube, and we'll extract the YouTube video ID. And for the URL, all we're gonna simply do is have the user input it in that input field. So we'll just grab it from our input A. So scroll down, we'll select input. I actually gave this a title as enter YouTube link. So input, enter YouTube link, select its value, and you're already good to go. We already have a way within a matter of seconds to get a ID associated with that video and a way to actually use the data associated to it. So what's the next thing we probably need to think about doing? Well, what we're returning right now is really just an identifier to that YouTube video. We have no real way to access any of the information such as the title, description, transcript, etc. All we have is an ID that's linking us to a specific video. So the next thing we need to do is probably do something with that ID and extract the data necessary that we need to display. So what do I mean by that? Well, we probably need to go back and use our trusty friend, Rapid API. So let's hop over to Rapid API. So now we're looking for a YouTube video extractor based off its specific ID. Just come up to our APIs and type in YouTube data. And then you'll see we have a YouTube API. Go ahead and select that first option. Now, once you successfully subscribed, come back down to your video details. We'll get that endpoint, and we want to actually copy that curl command so we don't have to do any of the heavy lifting. So once we have that copied, let's come back to our Bubble editor. So we'll add our new plugin. We'll select that first option, the API connector, and we'll hit install. Once we're done, we'll start setting up our API. So we'll add another API. We'll call this YouTube data. And go ahead and delete the one they already give you because we're going to make our own because we are going to import from our curl. So we'll copy and paste that code and hit import. And once you hit import, you're going to be able to see all the data again get populated exactly as it should be. The only thing we need to do is mess around with a few options. Remember that use as data, we really always want that as action. And then for our API key, we want to go ahead and select private. So make sure you private your API key. And of course, we need to add our parameter. Now let's see what the parameter they're looking for is. It's going to be an ID. So let's see if it gives us any more specific information. Your video ID or multiple IDs separated by a comma. So you can have multiple IDs. We're just going to go ahead and stick with one. So we'll have ID. And for value, we can go and leave that blank. And we'll uncheck private. So we have access to dynamically update that based on the user's input. So let's initiate the call and see what kind of errors we get. So it's actually wanting us to initialize an ID before we even have received an ID. So let's go ahead and save that, and we'll enter a value I have over here that we have from another lesson. So we'll copy that over and enter it, and then we can initialize the call. So we modified the last initialized. Thank you. Let's reinitialize. Now you can see it returns all of the information that we're going to need. Literally everything associated with the video, it returns to us. So that is super cool. Let's go ahead and save that. And we should be all set up with our curl call. Let's rename that. Let's call it a video details API call, just so we know what we're referencing. So once we have that set up, let's come back to our workflow and actually assign this URL that we're getting over here from the video ID to our next step, which is going to be the API call we just set up. So over here, we're going to type in YouTube, and you should see your YouTube data video details API call come up. That's where you're going to be able to enter this parameter here. So get rid of this. We want to insert our dynamic data, and the dynamic data we're getting is our step 1. So insert dynamic data, get the result of step 1, and you are good to go. That's the video ID that you're actually going to need to pass back to this API to get our details. Great. So we're all set up with our video ID extraction and our details extraction. Now, the next thing to think about doing is getting our transcript. So how are we going to do that? Well, we're probably going to build out our own custom data scraping tool. We're going to go use Rapid API, and we're going to type in and see if they can't help us out. So YouTube Scraper 2023. Let's go ahead and select this option here. This is what we're going to be using to go ahead and get that transcript. So you can see the first option is actually get video transcript. That's exactly what we're going to be using. So let's do the same process we just did, except for this new API that we need to utilize. So we'll subscribe to test. We'll go get that free option, of course, because we're cheap over here. Let's go to endpoints. And we want to select our curl. Well, let's see what the parameters are that we need to send. So it looks like it's looking for that same video ID. Perfect, because we're already gathering that. So let's copy and paste our curl command. Come to shell, we'll go to curl, copy that code. Let's go back to our bubble editor, into our plugin. Let's go make a new API. So we have our YouTube data. This one is going to be our YouTube scraper. So we'll just say YouTube scraper 2023, just so we know what plugin it is. And then for the API call, let's delete that and let's import a curl. Import, let's paste over that copy code. And now we have everything exactly how we need it, except for this little part, which we're going to change. Of course, let's make sure we have an action. Let's give this a new name. Call it YouTube Transcriber. That way we know what it's actually doing. Let's go ahead and private our API key. Now remember, you already know how to do this. We're going to insert a dynamic variable here. We'll just call it something like vid ID. Great. Then it should populate right here. You want to go ahead and uncheck private so we have access to it in our front end. Then we should be able to initialize this call, and hopefully, fingers crossed, we don't get any errors. But this is the real world, and we get errors all the time. So could not transcribe video. I wonder why. Probably because we didn't send it any video ID. We can come back to our data. Let's go use that same one we used in our video details. Let's go ahead and copy that over. Collapse. We'll come back here. Enter it as our value. Let's reinitialize the call. Now we actually get a transcript. Let's see what this looks like. So amazing. we get a full transcript of the video and every word that was said in it. Just like this, now we have all the data we need to actually write our summary or article or Twitter post or whatever you want to write with it. We now have the data we need. So that is super cool, and that should excite you a lot. So that is honestly so cool. Instead of doom scrolling TikTok for your dopamine hits, just come and try to hit API calls and don't get failures, and you're going to be on cloud 9. So let's go back to our workflow and see what we need to do now. So we have that. We need to set up this API call, though. So we have our new API call, which is YouTube, our scraper, and we're actually going to pass it that same ID. So we'll get step 5. I don't know why I said step 5, but step 1, extract our YouTube video ID. And that's all we're going to be passing into our scraper. Once you actually have all of these set up, step 1, 2, and 3, so our plugin and our 2 rapid APIs, we're actually ready to store this information in our database because we need a way to reference it later. So right now, let's come to our last step, and we'll go to our data, and we want to create a new thing. So what are we creating? Well, we're creating that source, of course. We want to add all of the fields. So what do we want to do for the text? We'll probably get that transcription, right? Because that's where all of our information lies, and that's really the important info that we need to get. So let's get our result of step 3 and come and select our transcript. Now you see it's giving us this error. And why are we getting errors? Well, it's because we suck at Bubble. No, I'm kidding. We're actually getting this error because our database is not formatted to take in the transcript data that we received, meaning we're expecting a text. It's not returning a text. So how do we fix that? Well, we can actually come and format as a text. So once we do that, we're actually going to be able to save this in our database as a text and get around that initial error that we just received. And once we have that formatted as text, just go ahead and close. You can see highlighted blue. That's because we outsmarted Bubble and we worked around our problem. That's what we do here at WGMI. We solve problems. That's what you just did. So let's go to our title. And what are we going to add for title? Well, we're going to add the video details that we got in our previous step. So let's select our step 2. Let's see what we have access to. So a ton of stuff, but we want our title. So result of step 2 and our title. And then for our URL, we're just going to simply get that input variable that the user inputs. So input, enter YouTube link. We'll get the value. Now we've updated our database to exactly what we need so we can display to the user. Great. Once all those are input, you should be good to go with updating your database. We should have all the information we need to move on to our next step, which is actually going to be sending information to make.com and performing some actions over there. So stay tuned for that because it just keeps getting more exciting as we go along in this little lesson here. So I'll see you in the next video.